We are getting started with Google Gemini. I know that I love Notebook LM and I've shared several things with you about Notebook LM, but we're actually going a little bit back here and just go into the basics. If you have not used Google Gemini, or even if you have, this is for you today. So I'm Alice Keeler. I'm a professional learning consultant with Orion, but my heart is, my life calling is middle school math teacher. And I'm proud to say that my daughter is going to be a middle school math teacher in the fall, so I can just live vicariously through her. So we're talking Google Gemini today. What is Google Gemini? Gemini is AI, like maybe you've used ChatGPT or Claude or some of these other tools, but it's Google's tool. Now, I prefer using Google Gemini because it is better. If you look, it's an arms race, right? So they kind of jockey back and forth over whose statistics are better than the other ones. But I get really great results of you today. So what really kicks it for me to say that I want to use Gemini is the security and privacy. Anything you put into Google Gemini has the same security as if it was just in your Google Drive. So for me, that makes me feel a lot better, especially as I think about student information. Like I already have my student names in Google Drive. And obviously I'm going to link and add those files in my Drive right into my Gemini chat. And so those will share student names. So I can feel a little bit better. Still, you should make a habit of not putting student names into AI, but I do know that anything that I do put in there is not training their model. When I use my school account, that's a very important distinction, and that it is not, it's the same privacy as if it was in my Google Drive to begin with. So it is enterprise grade data protection. So that's why I choose to use Google Gemini for privacy. Now, I made this graphic with Google Gemini. I actually have, and I've put this out in a previous newsletter, and if you'd like it, let me know. I have a description that I use for my graphics. So I have these are the Orion colors, the yellow and the blue, primarily with white, and then the accent colors is kind of that reddish color and the teal and green. So you'll notice is that all of my graphics look very similar. Like I'm able to do a completely new chat. I put it into Notebook LM. I use it on a different account entirely, and still my graphics look very much the same. And that is because I'm copying and pasting the exact same description every time. So I'm like, I want it to be no colored backgrounds, and it's diverse people using, you'll notice there's a lot of composition notebooks. Why is that? Because that is in my description of the pencils and classroom tools that I want to see in my graphics. And you'll see a Chromebook in there because that is also in my description. So one thing I would encourage you to do is, if you want to have some uniformity with what you create with AI, is to save. I save this description in a Google Keep Note. Is to save your descriptions, paste them. And now that's not specifics on the details of the content. It's just a description of what the graphics should look like. So if you take a little bit of time to keep arguing with Google Gemini and being like, make me an image. I don't like this image because can you do this to the image instead? And once you get the image the way you like it, then I ask it, hey, can you describe this for me? And I save that description. Gemini is available on free accounts. So today I'm not going to cover anything that is for paid Google Workspace users. So all the things are available for free. Now, if you go to your school account and you go to gemini.google.com and you don't have access, that is because whoever runs your Workspace account has to activate it. So probably you have it. I know very few schools that are just, I know some, but very few that are just cutting it off and being like, you can't use Gemini. So just say, hey, did you guys realize we can't access Gemini? It's secure and it doesn't read our chats. And if we're using Drive, we should feel okay about opening up access for the teachers to use Gemini. So where can you access Gemini? You can access Gemini on your desktop. That's the gemini.google.com. Now I have the app on my phone. I actually have a Pixel phone, so Gemini is built right into my phone, where when I ask like, what's the weather, it's actually doing a Gemini search. But if you don't have the Google Gemini app, I would highly recommend you use this, install this, because it has a feature called Gemini Live. I use it all the time. So when you do a chat, there's a little icon on the right of the chat, and you click on it, and it enables Gemini Live, and then you enable the camera, and it can see what's going on around you. And then I'm just starting like, hey, I'm grading some papers. I need some feedback, resources, and I can just ask for it and have it see what I'm seeing instead of having to type a prompt. And that is super cool. One time I was helping a teacher with her website, and actually we were getting kind of nerdy in the weeds, looking at the back end, trying to connect the DNS for her URL to the website, and it just wasn't working. So I just turned on Gemini Live. It's looking at it. It's looking at the errors and the code that we have and was telling us how to troubleshoot that. Now, what we're not going to get in today is that you can have Gemini in the sidebar of your Google Docs, your Google Sheets, your Google Slides, which I love that feature, but that is a paid feature. So I'm not going to cover that today, but probably your Google Chrome. If you look in the upper right of your Google Chrome, does it say Ask Gemini? Because that's a cool feature. It's going to look at whatever web page you're looking at, and you can ask it questions about that web page, what it's seeing. So that's actually a really helpful way to access Gemini. It's just through the, not really Chrome extension, it's just built into Chrome. It's in my very upper right hand of Chrome. So if this is your first time using AI, generative AI is about using your prompt. It's by entering a prompt where you ask a question or you give it a set of directions. So we talk about prompting. And what is your prompt? That is what you type into the prompt box. That's right there where it says Ask Gemini. Now, once it outputs, it gives you an answer, or I say like, make me a lesson plan, and it outputs a lesson plan. Make modifications. What's the most important thing is to realize is that the AI is not smarter than you. In fact, I find it to be quite stupid, especially when it comes to teaching things. And so I'm constantly having to be like, that's not what engagement is. Filling out a worksheet is not engaging. I want an engaging activity. That's still not engaging. Asking the kids to define a word, I get it. It activates prior knowledge, but it doesn't actually engage students. So I'm always just arguing with it. It tells me things that are not true. Don't forget, you're the expert. The best way to use AI is to be educated yourself on the topic so that you can have it be your assistant and not rely on it giving you information that may or may not be true. I was trying to have it help me do something in Canva, because when I put in bullet points, I want to have a space between each bullet. I'm like, I can't figure this out. So I go ask AI, and it gives me all these directions, and I'm like, those aren't even options. And then I realize it's telling me how to do it in a Google Doc, and I'm like, that's for Google Docs, not for Canva. And it goes, oh, you're right. You're so smart. That drives me crazy. I don't need to be flattered by machines. But this is really an important step of using Google Gemini, is to review it and ask for edits. Say, hey, this isn't accurate. And even better, if you can use that little plus icon in the prompt box in your conversation and add in sources to give it more context and knowledge, so it is assisting you with the things that you know. And here's a cool trick. You can add Notebook LM, which I do all the time. So that's a different topic. We're not covering Notebook LM today, but if you are a Notebook LM user, create a Notebook LM for all the things that you do, your standards, how you do your classroom behavioral management, how you do your rubrics, and you can add, I think, 10 Notebook LMs into one Google Gemini chat. So it gives it all this rich background to help make for better responses. And then once I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. I like this. I'm ready to start working on this myself. In the chat, you're going to click on the three dots and choose to send it to Docs. Now, there's other options. You can just copy it and paste it where you want to do that, or you can send it to Gmail. I very rarely do that. Sometimes I do. But for the most part, I use those three dots to export to a Google Doc. And whatever screenshots you're seeing here today, when you're watching this video later, I am sure the screenshots will all be changed, because every single day Google updates something. something somewhere. It's so fun being a Google expert. And then the last thing I want to direct you to, and just doing a basic Google Gemini conversation, is this sidebar on the left-hand side. We're going to jump into Gemini in 1 second here and show you this. The sidebar on the left-hand side, it expand and contract. You cannot see the slide on full view. Oh no. So are you guys not able to see my slides? Gail, can you see my slides? Okay, Tracy can see it. Okay. Danielle, can you? Okay. If you want to clarify that for me, I can see it small. Huh. I am confused as to why that would be a challenge. I'll resize it a little bit, see if I can make that any better. And I'm going to remove the toolbar. No, just hate it when it does that. It will not actually remove the toolbar. How do I get rid of this? And no. Okay, that's the best it's going to do right now. Okay, so I apologize that you're not able to see the slides. This is the link to the slide that I'm on. So if you want to open that up in a new tab, you can follow along if you need to see it larger. So this sidebar on the side of Gemini, it's going to list, it's a history of all your chats, which is super important. And I use that search chats because a lot of times I want to come back to that conversation and I'm like, man, I've done so many chats with Gemini since I asked this. Just search for it. I put in a keyword like classroom management, and all those chats are going to come up for me to get back into them and to continue those conversations. You bet. So sorry about that. I'm going to be moving. Right now I'm using Google Meet. I'm using Google Meet for this, but we actually have purchased a different product that we're going to try out for next week. I don't know. It'll be great or it'll be terrible. We're going to find out. I'm going to try it out. The summer is always good for experimenting, but I'm going to move to using Riverside, and hopefully that'll give you a bigger view of the slides. All right, so then in your conversation, that chat history on the side, if you hover over one of the chats, it shows you 3 dots. And in that, you can rename the chat. So if anything I'm like not doing just kind of ephemerally, like I'm going to use this after this moment, I'm going to rename it so it's more pertinent to me. My trick is I start it with a emoji if it's something that I think I'm going to come back to. Like this is an important conversation that I might use again. And then I use the pin option where I pin the chat, and it's just going to keep it there up in my chat history. Now, honestly, I have so many of them that I had pinned. I've kind of stopped doing that. And what I do instead is I just bookmark them, because the link at the top of your Gemini chat is unique. So I just click the star up in the address bar, and I have a folder called Gemini, and I save my chat so I can get back to those chats, and then I can organize them up in the bookmark bar. So there's a lot of ways that you can do this. When I'm using Gemini to do a presentation like this one, I'm going to copy the link to that Gemini chat that I'm using up at the top in the address bar, and I paste it into the speaker notes of my first slide, because if I want to go back and make edits, if I'm working on a Google Doc, I create a second tab and I paste the link to that Gemini chat, so that when I go back to work on it later, I can continue the conversation that I have my assistant that I've been basically training to help me with whatever task that I am doing. Okay, so now we are going to use Gemini, and we're going to ask it for some ideas. If you'd like to do this with me, if you have not used Gemini before, please feel free to open up Gemini in a new tab. So that is gemini.google.com, gemini.google.com. And what I am going to do is I actually have the chat. It's secret. You don't see my prompt, but I made it the same font color. I'm going to copy my prompt. So what I want to do is I'm going to ask it a question. What's the weather? You could do that, or define something. But we're not really using it like a Google search as much as we're trying to use it to be our assistant. So I'm just going to say, hey, I'm teaching a lesson on standard deviation. I'm a math teacher, sorry friends, to my high school algebra class. What are examples I can use to make it relevant? Now, before I hit enter, I'm going to click on where it says thinking on here. This is the models of how fast it is and also how detailed it is. And you got to balance a fast answer with a more thoughtful answer. My advice is always use Flash. Always use Flash. And if the result is not what you wanted, then you're like, okay, well, then I'm going to change it to thinking. And if you're coding, you use Pro. If you're not coding, don't use Pro. You get a very limited amount of the thinking in the Pro. Every day there's a daily quota. So just stick with Flash so you don't run out, and then use the other models only if you really need to. And to be honest with you, I don't need to. The Flash is really good, and I almost always just use Flash unless I'm coding. So hit submit. By the way, if you want that prompt, I'm going to paste that for you right there in the chat. Oh, that's interesting. The font is yellow. So it says it's having a conversation with me. I said that I want some examples to make my lesson relevant. Usually it says something very flattering about me. High schoolers love to know why they are learning something. So it's giving me an example of how I can use this with a tale of baseball players, or use it for video games and streaming algorithm playlist, shoe size versus height. That's a classic as a statistics teacher. And then it gives me a little bit of information. So look at how much information this gave me when I just put in a very simple prompt, like give me some real world examples. Now, what did I tell you? The first thing you do is you ask, and then you argue with it. My students play soccer, not basketball. Now, the implication here is that I want them to improve it, but I'm not even going to ask specifically because we're having a conversation. It knows what we're talking about, although sometimes it goes off the rails. So, oh, that's an easy fix. Thank you. So now it's going to give me some samples that I can use with my students for the lesson that I'm teaching about topics that my students care about. I was teaching math in Southwest Kansas, and the example in the math book was about a round skating rink. We don't go ice skating in Kansas. So I need an example of something my students are interested in. And even better, I'll be putting in information about where we live and using the geography around us so that it's something that they can relate to. And that's something that Gemini is really great for, is something that I'm teaching. I'm like, hey, help me to modify what I'm doing or find examples that are local or aligned to the interests of my students. So those are all really helpful. Now, if I like it, now I can use the 3 dots here at the bottom, and I can export it to Google Docs. That's great, except it's in 2 separate responses here. So I have the first one that I can export to Google Docs was the one about the basketball. And then the second one is about the soccer. So now I'm going to say, please combine all of these together into a student-friendly, you know what? I'm going to leave it misspelled. I love that about Geminis. I can spell things wrong. I'm like, it knows what I meant, usually. The student-friendly handout. And I misspelled that too, because I have fat fingers. Okay, so now it's given me something that is more student-facing. So before it was kind of help me with those examples that I could use that in my lesson building. I'm like, that's cool, but I need this to be for my students. So now I'm going to do the 3 dots. I'm going to export it to Google Docs. Wait for it. Oh, there we go. I'm going to open the docs. And you'll see that it's right in there. Now I can start editing it. It was my assistant. You might want to tell it, don't give no emojis, no dashes. I do that a lot because I don't want all that stuff in there. But it gives me something that I can work with pretty quickly and easily. Now, again, if you look at that sidebar there on the left, the sidebar on the left is collapsed. And so what I want to do is I don't know if you can see I have the little arrows. I can collapse it and expand it. I just click on that sidebar and it brings it back out. And it's going to show me my list of my chats. And then in that chat that I was just doing, if I hover over it, I have the 3 dots and I'm going to rename it. And I'm just going to change this to SD examples. So I rename that. And then if you want 3 dots, you can pin it. So it's going to put it up there. You can see I have all these pinned chats so that it's the one that I'm working on recently. Now, let me tell you, there's a new feature. It came out like this week. Is shared to Drive, via Drive. So what that allows you to do, I'm going to go ahead and click on that, share via Drive. And I'm going to change the sharing, just like a Google Doc. I'm going to copy that link and drop it here in the chat. And now you have access to my whole conversation. So think about what a game changer that is for my high school teachers when students use Gemini. Say, turn in your conversation so I can see that you used it to proofread your essay, not to write your essay. That's not foolproof. But anything that you're creating that you just want to share the whole conversation, you can now do that. All right, we have a question. Can Gemini provide real life data that could fit a particular function? Yes, and I do that all of the time. So I'm going to do a new chat. This is not exactly your question, Leslie, but give me a list of fake student names, list of 50 fake student names. And here's the thing, in a table. I love to ask for things in a table so that it structures the response better. So I ask for fake data all of the time because if anything on my blog or the social media that I put out, they're never real student names. It's never real student data. I falsify it. And so I use Gemini to make that fake data for me. And then here's the cool thing that I love is if I ask for it in a table, then these 3 dots, and notice it's different than these 3 dots. This 3 dots lets me export it to docs. This 3 dots lets me export it to sheets. And that's just exporting just the table. So I'm always asking, please export this to a table. Okay, great. We have a comment in the sidebar that Gemini was able to update a PowerPoint. Absolutely. So if you use that plus icon, you notice you have the option to upload files and to add from Drive, and Notebooks is Notebook LM. And so these are adding sources of content. So a lot of times I'll add something. I'm like, I need to improve this. I need to make it more student friendly, or I want to use the information here to create this other thing. And it's really great for doing that. So just adding that plus icon in your chat allows you to add those extra features. Okay. Now, I put in my prompt. You'll notice that my prompt was, I'm teaching a standard lesson on standard deviation. I could have left it at that. It's going to be pretty crappy. Like, what does it know about standard deviation? The dumpster fire of the internet. But I gave it a little bit more details. I said to my high school algebra class, so I'm giving it some context. And then I said, what do I want it to do specifically? So this is not a terrible prompt. A terrible prompt would be, just give me a lesson on standard deviation. The more details, the better. So look at this one. It's like, act as a creative, student-centered instructional partner. I'm going to teach a lesson on standard deviation, and I want to brainstorm 3 different examples or hooks, and this is what my students are into. The more details you put into your prompt, the better the results are going to be, because I want it to be my assistant, not my replacement. Audrey, so I have a question, does Gemini have an equivalent to the projects in ChatGPT? Audrey, if you want to explain to me in the chat what is projects in ChatGPT, I'll tell you how that works. So what can I do? What are our everyday tasks? So we're just starting with some just real basic, simple things. I'm a believer that before we unleash this on kids, before we just dive into the deep end, like, let's just learn to use it really well for the things that will help me to save some time and give me a better idea of what it looks like to make this my assistant. So I do this one a lot, just clean up my messy notes. In fact, I use voice typing. Projects are like file folders. I mean, Okay, I understand. I do have that. I have done that where I organize multiple chats. You know what? I just do the projects from like ChatGPT in Gemini by bookmarking them. So I make a bookmark folder. So if you right click on your bookmark bar and you choose add folder, you can't see my right click and you can't see this. But I just right clicked on my bookmark bar and I said, create a folder on my right click. And now what I'm going to be able to do is just bookmark all of my chats into that folder. And then I really would just make a notebook LM really as your projects and just attach that to any of your chats to bring continuity. So one of the things I do a lot is I have a conversation with Gemini, I export it to a Google Doc, and then I take that Google Doc and I add it into Notebook LM. You can link, oh, this might be a beta feature, so I'm not going to say it. Ask me in a few months. So clean up my messy notes. So what I do is I just turn on voice typing, or I just type a hot mess. I don't try and spell it correctly. I don't use punctuation. I mean, I do, but I don't try to do it. I am messy typing out all of my ideas. And I'm like, hey, Gemini, organize this into a lesson plan or structure this for me. Whatever it is that I need to do, that I don't want to do it because it takes forever to format it and think about all the ways I want to carefully use my words. I just hot mess, brainstorm, and let it write it out for me. And that is really one of the most helpful things that I do. This is the link to the slides. I already gave them to you. Level this text. I love this feature because I want to use resources with my students that probably are not on grade level. So I just say, hey, rewrite this. Or if I have students in my class for whatever reason, they're Spanish speakers, so put it in Spanish, translate it and simplify the text so you can do a lot of things right in there. All right, so Jennifer says she asked it, did you ask Gemini to make a PowerPoint into a video or just Notebook LM? The video features, I think, came out yesterday. So Gemini, okay, I sat in, I don't want to give away any NDA information, but I was in a meeting yesterday. They're telling us about the new release that was coming out today. So I should be good to talk about it. Format this text. I definitely use this a lot. I'm like, get rid of, I don't want large blocks of text. I want headings and subheadings. I don't like to use bullet points myself. I'd rather it to be a subheading with the text underneath it. Vary the sentence length. Nothing looks more like AI wrote it than every sentence being about the same length of text. And just have it start to learn how you write. I ask it like, here's something I wrote. Tell me my qualities. Give me a prompt that I can use so I can have it format it the way that I talk and the way that I write. So that's really helpful. I have it make a real world problem, adjust this math problem to have a real world context. We kind of already did that, so I'm going to skip over. Staring at a blank page, right? That takes a long time. Like I just need an opener for today. What are we going to talk about? So I'm going to use Gemini to brainstorm with me. I'd show you these, but I'm out of time again. If you have not used the Canvas, this is your homework for the weekend. So when you click the plus icon in the chat, in the prompt box, that one of the tools is Canvas. And when you do the Canvas, now when you say create a lesson plan, it's going to actually open it up into this editable sidebar. Now let me show you this. I'm going to highlight here, and then you'll see that it says Ask Gemini, only 9th grade. I can give it feedback on parts of it. And now it's going to edit, so I'm having an interactive experience with the output rather than having to start it all over again. So you'll now see it updated it to 9th grade. So as I go through and I'm just providing my assistant some feedback, I can just actually highlight, give it feedback, and continue this editing conversation. Create a classroom spinner. So I said, here's my student names. Create an app with a spinny wheel of student names. And I honestly, my prompt wasn't even very good. I just said basically make me a spinny wheel and keep them on the wheel. And if you're using Canvas, so notice I have this Canvas tool selected, it's going to make you some cool little free and data safe applications that you can use in your class. And now, new feature, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Use the share via Drive. That's how you can share your spinny wheel with other people. All right. Copy the link. Anyone with the link? Done. Hey, you guys, if you want to click on that, that's my spinny wheel. So now I can make something and share it with other people for them to play with that resource. So again, that's where I add Canvas. So I click the plus icon in the prompt and I choose Canvas. It allows me to create interactive elements that as of like this week, you can now share those interactive things that you create. And last but not least, I just want to mention that one of the tools is guided learning, where it teaches you something instead of just tells you something. So I'm like, hey, I teach middle school math. Teach me how to have effective classroom management. And you'll notice that the tool that I added is the guided learning. And if you are a Google Classroom user, this guided learning is something that you can give to your students. So again, they're using AI, that has to be enabled, that they're using AI to learn something and not just write their essay for them. Okay, I'm out of time. I've done another series already on GEMS. I have some other videos and I would love to do some more in the future, but GEMS allow you to save your prompt. So when you click on GEMS on the left-hand side, you paste your prompt, generic prompt, into the directions, and that allows you to get to where you need to go a lot faster. That I just say, standard deviation without creating a lesson plan because it's in my saved prompt.